Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is Saturday, January the 6th, 2018. TowerGate 303. Welcome to the weekend edition, and hopefully you're happy with the fact that it's uploaded before 1 o'clock in the morning. So doing something a little different, trying to get these Saturday videos up a little earlier in the day. A lot earlier in the day, actually. And also, just want to make a comment here on I've had a couple rough endings to a couple videos this week, and that's because a while back YouTube got rid of their YouTube video editor, and so I downloaded a free video editor, and I'm having issues with it, so I do apologize for the abrupt endings. I generally like to say thank you for tuning in and goodbye, but a couple of them have, came up about 5 seconds short. It's just kind of hard to work with that editing tool, so I'm working on that. Maybe I'll go out and get me a better editing program or something like that. But anyway, just so you know why the couple videos this week had very abrupt endings. It's been an extraordinary week this week, obviously, and I was just reflecting back, thinking about we're now over 300 TowerGate videos, and I never knew when I did the first one I would end up doing 300 videos, or what's likely to be 3,000 videos at some point, I guess. But I was thinking that back early in the summer when I first started doing these videos, and we were in some fairly dark days there when we were at the very height, right after Trump was sworn in and the deep state coup was in full fever pitch, and it didn't seem like President Trump had any friends in Washington at all. Didn't seem like the Republicans were behind him at all. It looked like the deep state coup was going to be successful. And I stated at that time many times in a lot of those early videos that we just had to stay the course, that because eventually all the lies and all the stuff that wasn't true was going to fall away, and eventually we were going to find ourselves in a situation where once those things had fallen away, the real truth about what really happened in 2016 would then rise to the surface. And so this week we saw the fruits of all of our labors and all of our painstaking efforts and all those dark moments of the early days of the TowerGate series of videos that I started doing. So let's not underestimate the importance of the events that we saw take place this week, which all seem to culminate almost all together. And that's because the old narrative is gone, and the new narrative is now rising forward, and it's the narrative of the truth. And that's why the coming year of 2018 is going to be an extraordinary year. It's going to be a year that will be marked in American history for centuries to come, and we're living through it. We're living through history. We're living through history. It's extraordinary. Don't underestimate the times we're living in and all the things that are happening. They're very important. And someday, when your grandchildren and great-grandchildren are reading about this in history books, you'll be able to say, I was right there from day one, watching it all play out. And you'll be able to tell your own personal story about your experience at the deep state coup, and how it boomeranged, and how the truth found its way to the surface, and justice did prevail. That's what's important, and that's why we're all here. So let's cover the last 24 hours of breaking news, shall we? Oh, by the way, thank you to all those of you who subscribe, and especially those of you who take the time to comment. And of course, it's always nice if you share the video and give me a thumbs up. I appreciate that as well. And hello to all those of you who are new, maybe watching a TowerGate video for the first time. Welcome to the community. We're pretty nice people here, so you should hang out for a while. Okay, in the last 24 hours, well, we talked about yesterday that Judge Leon had ruled that Fusion GPS must turn over their banking records to Devin Nunez Intelligence Committee, to his investigators and attorneys. We learned this morning that Devin Nunez's committee does have access now to Fusion GPS bank records, and that comes directly from Fusion GPS's bank. They were given the court order yesterday, and by this morning, when that bank opened, those records were made available to Devin Nunez's House Intelligence Committee. And you can bet that they'll be shared with the other committees looking into Fusion GPS and their dirty dealings. Charles Grassley and Candy Pants Lindsey Graham have asked the Justice Department to open criminal investigation on Christopher Steele for making false statements to the FBI. This is based on, according to Candy Pants Lindsey Graham, some inconsistencies in his statements. Apparently, they've reviewed a lot of the things that Christopher Steele has stated, both in his deposition hearings and the BuzzFeed case in Florida and also in the case in the UK, as well as possibly they've gotten access to other information in those court filings that we haven't seen. But for some reason, maybe they've seen some of the reports about the questioning that went on between Robert Mueller's people and Christopher Steele, because remember, Mueller's people went over and interviewed Christopher Steele. So somehow Lindsey Graham and Charles Grassley have seen a lot of things from Christopher Steele that he said or stated, or that his attorneys have stated, and they see some very disturbing inconsistencies in his statements. And based on that, they wrote a letter, which I read. It's been posted on several websites today, including The Hill. They have now sent this letter to the Justice Department asking for a complete investigation into whether or not Christopher Steele has made false statements to the FBI. So now they want to investigate Christopher Steele as well. That has got to make him very nervous. Next, Devin Nunez is getting the documents that he wanted. He began receiving them documents today. He's also looking to get all those emails as well from Peter Benstrokinus and Lisa Page. We got about 10% of them. He wants them all, and he wants them unredacted. Something tells me he will get them. But more importantly, he's been cleared to interview and question the following individuals: Bill Priestap, Peter Benstrokinus' boss, the man who's been kept behind the shadows this whole time and who knows everything. James Baker, the senior counsel for the FBI. He was James Comey's right-hand man. And of course, he was reassigned, and we believe it was because he may have given information to David Korn of Mother Jones, who wrote the very first article regarding the dossier and the Trump-Russia thing. He's also going to be able to interview Peter Benstrokinus and Lisa Page, as well as Bruce Ohr, Andy McCabe, and the dishonorable, filthy James Comey. So those are just more things that we see happening very quickly. These things are happening very quickly now. It was just yesterday that most of these proclamations came down, and already you can see Fusion GPS's bank complied immediately by making available those records. And you can see that Devin Nunez has now been given clearance to interview all of these individuals and receive all the documents he requested. Now, I want to talk about a true patriot, a man who throughout this entire thing has really been front and center. And there's quite a few good people I could mention. I like Mark Meadows, Matt Gaetz, some other good people. But really, Jim Jordan has been the shining light from the very beginning. He was the very first one who really had the courage to really go out there and really speak in very plain terms and not pull any punches about what he thought was going on. He's the one who had the courage to go on to MSNBC and CNN, where a lot of these other guys won't go. Or if they do go, they soft step it. Not Jim Jordan. He was full-throated in every appearance on MSNBC and CNN. He doesn't back down. He doesn't back down from the case he's making. He doesn't get weak in the knees. He's not intimidated or anything else. This guy has been hardcore, steadfast, hardcore patriot all the way. And I just like the guy. Now, maybe it has something to do with the fact that we're both Ohio boys. We grew up right here in the same general neighborhood. He is the representative in the district just north of me. I don't know what it is, but I just like the guy, and I think that he's done an absolutely fantastic job. He's really been a very courageous individual, because it takes a lot of courage to stand up to these people, the entire media complex, and he's just done an extraordinary job. And you know, if any of you get a chance over the weekend, you can just type his name into Google, Jim Jordan. The very first thing that will pop up is a website for his congressional office. You can send him a quick email and thank him for standing up for us and having our back, because this man deserves a lot of credit for getting us to where we are today. He's had a lot of people come on board with him in the past few months, and especially the past few weeks, now that the water is warm and it's safe to get in. But when this was a very tough dig, back in the hard days, back in the early summer, when things were looking pretty grim, it was Jim Jordan that steadfastly stood his ground, made his case without apology. He was a true patriot and a true freedom fighter. And so if there's anything that you have a few moments that you can send along a message to Jim Jordan and thank him for the efforts that he's made and for being such a great freedom fighter and a great patriot, I think it's well deserved. So back about 3-4 weeks ago, Jim Jordan put out a tweet where he posted 18 questions. And it's just funny, because 3 or 4 weeks ago, we never would have thought we would ever be able to get the answers to any of these questions, because the stone wall was there, and it didn't seem that there was going to be any measure that could break that stone wall down. But as the revelations have come in the past 48 to 72 hours, and we finally see that those walls are coming down very quickly and completely, and now these 13 questions or 18 questions that Jim Jordan proposed almost a month ago, when they just looked like a fantasy that would never happen, now it looks like these questions are going to be asked, and Jim Jordan deserves more than anyone to be able to sit down and now face all of these individuals in the deep state who are part of the coup, look them directly in the eye, and now ask them those 18 questions that he posed on Twitter about a month ago. So now I just want to refresh your memory and go through those questions for you. This is Jim Jordan from almost a month ago. 18 questions was the title of his tweet. Or it may have been Facebook or Twitter, I'm not sure which. One of those two social media outlets, he posted this up. Question number 1 from Jim Jordan. Did the FBI pay Christopher Steele, the author of the dossier? He's now going to get the answer to that question. In fact, they're probably looking at those documents right now. Number 2, was the dossier used to obtain a FISA warrant to spy on Americans? And why won't the FBI show Congress the FISA application? Well, now it appears that we believe that Lindsey Graham has seen, as well as other people on that Judiciary Committee in the Senate, have seen that FISA application warrant. And now Devin Nunez's committee is going to get to see that application of the FISA warrant. And that would include Jim Jordan. Number 3, when did the FBI get the FBI get the complete dossier, and who gave it to them? Was it A, Christopher Steele, B, Fusion GPS, C, the Clinton campaign, D, Senator Magoo, or his staffer, David Kramer? Which of those people gave the complete dossier to the FBI? That's a very good question. We know how they were getting the memos, and we know that David Kramer did give a copy to the FBI. But the question was, when did they first get that dossier, the complete dossier? That's a very good question, because it suggests in the question that it came from more than one source. Number 4, did the FBI validate and corroborate the dossier? Boy, oh boy, that's a tough question. You don't want to be having that question asked of you, because it's a type of question that you either admit, it's like you're either guilty or you're guilty. There's no way to win on that question. Did the FBI validate and corroborate the dossier? If you say yes, you're lying because we know they didn't. If you say no, you're admitting that you sought FISA warrants based on fraudulent information. And that's a big-time crime. That is a tough question you do not want to be answering, and every one of these people will probably be asked that question. Number 5, did Peter Benstrokenis, Loose Lisa Page, or Bruce Ohr meet with Christopher Steele during the 2016 campaign? That's a very good question, and certainly one I would ask. Question number 6. Why and how often did DOJ lawyer Bruce Ohr meet with Christopher Steele during the 2016 campaign? I like that question because he says, why and how often did Bruce Ohr meet with Christopher Steele? We know he did, but what we never really did learn is, like, we know he met with Christopher Steele, but what we didn't actually get was why he met with Christopher Steele or how often. Very important question. Number 7, why did DOJ lawyer Bruce Ohr meet with Glenn Simpson after the election? To get the story straight after their candidate lost, or to double down and plan how they were going to go after President-elect Trump? That is a very good question. Because, yeah, he met with Glenn Simpson. We know he met with him before, but now we also know he met with him after. Why would he meet with him after the election was over? That's a very good question. Next, when and how did the FBI learn that DOJ lawyer Bruce Ohr's wife, Nellie, worked for Fusion GPS? And what was Nellie Ohr's role in putting together the dossier? Do you think Jim Jordan's been watching my videos? I'm thinking maybe, because I'm really one of the few people I've seen out there that suggest that she may have been the primary author along with Glenn Simpson and his wife, and not Christopher Steele at all. And he's asking when and how did the FBI learn that DOJ lawyer Bruce Ohr's wife, Nellie, worked for Fusion GPS? That is a very good question. That is a very good question because it opens up a lot of other questions when you answer that one. Number 9, why did the FBI release text messages between Peter Benstrokenis and Loose Lisa Page? That's a good question. Why did they release those text messages? Some of them. And why did the FBI release only 375 of 10,000 texts? Were they the best, the worst, or part of a broader strategy to focus attention away from something else? And when can the Americans see the other 96% of texts? Very well done, Mr. Jordan. Very well done. Question number 11. Why did Loose Lisa Page leave the Mueller probe 2 weeks before Peter Benstrokenis? This was 2 weeks before Mueller learned about the texts. Question I hadn't thought of because I didn't know that. I didn't know that Loose Lisa Page left 2 weeks before Benstrokenis and 2 weeks before Mueller even learned about the texts. So that question really is, why did Lisa Page leave the Mueller team? Let's see them answer that one. Number 12. Why did the intelligence community wait 2 months after the election to brief President Trump on the dossier? Why was Comey selected to do the briefing? That's a very good question, don't you think? Why did they wait so long? They've got this information, yet they wait 2 months until after the elections. In January, on January the 6th, 2017 to be exact, was when they briefed Trump. But they had had this dossier for over 2 months. Why did they wait so long? Inquiring minds want to know, don't they? Number 13. Was the briefing done to legitimize the dossier? Of course it was. That's one of them questions you ask that everyone already knows the answer to. Of course it was done to legitimize the dossier, and of course to give a reason for them to leak the story, which is part of the rest of that question, which the entire question was the briefing done to legitimize the dossier, and who leaked the fact that the briefing was about the dossier. That's a very good question, because if it was just James Comey one-on-one on January the 6th, 2017, giving this information to Trump about the dossier, how the hell did it find its way into the New York Times the very next day? That's what prompted BuzzFeed to go ahead and release it. Looks like a plot and a plan, a very well coordinated plan. Comey is going to go do this, which will give you the reason, New York Times, to do this, and then BuzzFeed can follow along with this. My. It's quite the tangled web, isn't it? And it's going to be untangled, my friends. We will get the answers to these questions. 3 or 4 weeks ago, when he put this stuff out in social media, we never thought we'd ever get the answers to these questions. Now, we're going to get the answers to these questions. They're probably looking at all this right now. Number 14, the New York Times reported last week that George Papadopoulos' loose lips were the catalyst for launching the Russia investigation. Was President-elect Trump briefed on this? My. We just debunked that New York Times piece a couple of days ago. Many other people have debunked it since then. That question never actually dawned on me, but it's a very, very good point and a very good question. We talked about the fact that the dossier happened, and then they launched the intelligence surveillance on Carter Page, but nothing was done supposedly after the revelations of Papadopoulos. But this is another interesting way of putting a similar type of question, but it focuses it more sharply, is why wasn't President Trump briefed on it? If this was all about Papadopoulos and all the things that were going on around him, then why did Comey sit down on January 6th and tell Trump all about the allegations in the dossier and never even bring up Papadopoulos? And of course, we just learned from John Brennan, Clapper, head of D&I, that he had never even heard of Papadopoulos until he heard about the FBI charging him, and he was the head of D&I. If Papadopoulos' deal had anything to do with anything, Clapper would have known. You see, each individual person in this plot is now figuring out the best exit strategy for them and how to save their neck, which means they're all going to start going in a million different directions. And that's why this whole house of cards is coming down. They're not going to be able to keep that many people on the same sheet of music, especially when a lot of things will not add up. Everyone's now looking to cover their own ass, basically. Next, why did Glenn Simpson, Homer, meet with Natalia Veselnitskaya before and after her meeting on that day with Trump Jr. at Trump Tower? Now, of course, this is what Veselnitskaya told the committee when she testified. She said that she met with Glenn Simpson on the morning of, before she went to the Trump Tower meeting, and after the Trump Tower meeting. Met with him twice on the same day of the Trump Tower meeting with Trump Jr. and Manafort and Kushner. But when Glenn Simpson was asked in his 9 or 10 hours of hearings, he denied that he met with Veselnitskaya on that day. One of them is lying. They're both liars, so it'd be hard to tell who's the actual liar. Maybe they're both lying in some way. Number 16, why was FBI counsel Jim Baker reassigned 2 weeks ago? Was he the source of the first story of the dossier by David Corn, on October 31st, 2016, or was it someone else at the FBI? Well, it's pretty well believed that James Baker was the man who gave that information to David Corn. I think the people who would know would be the FBI, and it was the FBI who reassigned Baker. So if they didn't, if it wasn't him, then they obviously reassigned him for some other reason. Obviously, he's also deeply connected to Comey. He was Comey's right-hand man, his lawyer, the FBI's top counsel. He's the man that Comey would speak to probably every day about what the legal ramifications were for all the things that he was doing. But it may have something also to do with the recent fact that they've now decided that the Congress can see those memos. Next, why won't the FBI give Congress the documents it's requesting? Well, 3.5 weeks ago, that was a good question. Now it's no longer a relevant question because now they're getting not only the documents, but the witnesses and getting everything unredacted. Why would Chuck Schumer, leader of the Democratic Party, publicly warn President Trump on January the 3rd, 2017, when he was president-elect, that when you mess with the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you? I forgot about that little gem. How about you? You see, a month ago, these questions, we were all saying, they'll never get the answer to those. The FBI is just stonewalling. We'll never get past it. But you can see how quickly the worm has turned, how fast things have changed. Now, all those questions are going to be answered. And Jim Jordan is going to have the honor to sit there and be one of the men asking those questions. And he deserves it. He's a good man. There's a lot of good men out there, and there's a lot of good men and women viewing this channel right now. I want to thank each and every one of you. Thanks for being with us, being with me, I should say, this Saturday for this weekend edition of TowerGate. I'll be back Sunday with some more hard-hitting information, and hopefully we'll have a follow-up on the Son of Nuo report, and I'm sure you'll enjoy that. You guys have a good night. Be safe. Stay warm. All right? Bye.